Started on our pom-pom. I bought some fur, some faux fur at the fabric store, and if you can see it, it's got a real long pile to it. You want a nice fluffy pom-pom, and because we're going to be curling it all the way around, you want that to be as fluffy as possible, or else you're going to be able to see the fabric underneath the fur, so you don't want that to happen. So I got this real thick pile stuff. If you're lucky, you can get it as a remnant. And then it's 50% off of whatever the sale price is, which is really awesome. And since you're only going to be using it in small pieces, I would totally advise that that's the way you go for finding your fabric. So what we're going to do is cut out a circle, and what I use is my cereal bowls. I think that technically it's a salad bowl, and I get as close to the edge as I can, just so that I can get as much out of the fabric as possible. And then I just use a regular pen, this one just happens to be a Star Wars pen, to draw around it. Oops, this pen doesn't want to work. Silly Star Wars pen. Let's see, this will be easier for you guys to see anyways. So we're going to draw around the cereal bowl here. We have a nice little circle. So here's our circle. We're going to get that Star Wars pen out of the way. And then, I use my fabric scissors. You can kind of use whatever scissors you want here, but what I'm going to show you a trick so that you don't cut through too much of this pile on the back here. You just use the very end of your scissors. So don't use the whole thing like you would cutting paper. Just kind of use the ends. And get in there and try to cut the fabric behind the fur instead of the fur itself. So if you do this in little tiny strokes, it has less of a chance of affecting your fur. And it makes a lot less of a mess too. Pom-poms in general tend to be messy, and fur ones are no exception. So we're gonna see how this isn't really cutting the fur. The fur's kind of still staying over here. So we're gonna just keep going like that in little bitty pieces, so that we don't cut apart our nice fur. So, alright, let's spin this around. I'm going to come at it from this side, because I have a pretty big piece of fur sitting on my desk, so it makes it a little harder to rotate around so you guys can see. So if you cut in short little strokes and think about just cutting that fabric that's behind the fur, don't cut long pieces of fur. You'll have a much more uniform looking circle. And much fluffier too, which is our goal, right? Fluffy. So, we've got our fluffy circle here. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to make a pretty big pom-pom, if you haven't figured that out yet. So, you can see we have our fur here, and since it is going one direction, there is going to be kind of a balder side, just because the fur has to lay one way. But you can see where we cut along the other side, because we were careful cutting through the fabric, we have all the fringe that remains. So, this is where I like to try to get all of this excess off. Good luck with that. To some point, you're always going to have a pile of fur like this that's left over. That's just the nature of working with faux fur. If you guys come up with something fun to do with it, let me know, because I would love to see your fun, like, items made with stray fuzz. It'd be hilarious. So anyways, the next thing we're going to do is get a needle and thread. So I just have some leftover sewing thread. It's just standard Coats and Clark sewing thread. And cut that off. And you're going to want to use a pretty sharp needle. So I'm just going to try to use a bigger needle than I really need so that you guys can see it. Because I want this to look easy. Because it is relatively easy, you just got to get used to it. So, since I want this thread to be pretty strong, I'm actually going to double it. So once you thread it through your needle, just pull it all the way to the end and then tie a knot or a couple of knots in the end, tying the two sides together, because this will just double up your thread and that'll just help your project stay a little nicer. So starting from the front side, which I know sounds backwards, we're going to come in and give yourself, oh, I don't know, a 1/4 inch or so here. And you're just going to make a circle around the outside, working in and out. So, like a 1/4 inch away from the edge. And it doesn't really matter how big your stitched sections are here, because you're going to pull them tight. And they're all going to get scrunched into the middle, so. Oh, look at me making a mess here. And I'll show you how to get that fur out of your thread, or out of your stitches. But for this step, we're just not really we're not trying to be super pretty, we're just trying to get the job done. Get the thread pulled through all the way around. So, since we're kind of running low on thread and we haven't gone quite halfway around yet, you can start to pull this tight and you'll see it's starting to scrunch. And so that's what you're wanting to do. Your goal is to just thread through here about the same distance from the edge all the way around. Oh, we're getting to that really fuzzy side. Give it another tug. Okay, we just want to scrunch this edge up nice and scrunchy. And you're going to want to start letting it cup up like this as you sew. If you want to just use a really long piece and sew it super flat and then pull, you can. I just don't like working with super long threads, so this is just a little bit easier to kind of scrunch as you go for me. But if you don't want to do it that way, I'm not going to make you. I won't show up at your house and force you to do it my way. Unless you've got coffee, then I'd love to come to your house. So, let's see here. Getting our nice little scrunchy ball here. Almost done. Oh, there's a snag. Awesome. There we go. Okay, we've gone all the way around. Hooray! So, we have a nice little kind of bowl, if you will, here where our pom-pom is. This is what the other side looks like. Okay, so we have our little bowl, and now I'm just going to add the tiniest bit of polyfill, an amigurumi designer's best friend. So you shouldn't need very much, especially if you do a smaller pom-pom. Your goal is to make it round, obviously. So this is probably all that I'm going to use for this particular pom-pom. And then you're just going to pull tight until those edges all meet. So we have our string here. Okay, and the tighter you get this, the more this section that you were sewing through is going to just disappear. So you're going to pull it real tight. Okay, and then once you've got it mega super tight, you can tie it off. So here's my method. I like to stick it through the opposite side over here so that I know I'm also helping my hole close up at the same time that I'm tying this off. And then I have my loop that's left in my thread, which is probably really hard to see because it's on white. And I'm just going to go back through that loop one more time as I'm pulling this bad boy tight. Whoops, see, and I messed it up. Didn't get a hold of it. So, hold tight. And you are going to have some pieces of fur that catch in your stitches. You're going to just gently with your fingers or with a needle, see, you can do it with the needle, pull those out. See how that works? So that it comes apart, whoops, the way you want it to. So here's me, I'm tying this off a little bit more. I don't like how stuck out it is. So there we go. See how nice and closed up that is now. So close it up real good. Thread through the other side like I was saying. Tie it off. And then go back, and if you want to, go back and pull all those little threads out of your pom-pom. All those little fur places. So I'm not super concerned about the fur on this side because this is the side we're going to attach to the hat. This is the side where our pom-pom is actually going to show. And I love this one. They look like truffle trees. They're so fluffy. So here's our super mega fluffy pom-pom. And we're just going to take it and using that exact same thread, here's our hat. I've already got this hat totally made. This is the Foothills slouchy hat. The pattern's available in the Etsy shop. And as well as the pom-poms, actually. So I make pom-poms for you guys. And you can buy a whole kit to make the Foothills slouchy hat, including a pom-pom. And not have to buy the fur and not have to mess with all the fur. And then make your own slouchy hat, just like this. So here's the deal. We're going to, using the same thread through the very top of the hat. And then, just kind of like when we were closing it up, we're just going to go crisscross across the stitches on the pom-pom. And we're going to do that again through the top of the slouchy hat. I like doing the next one at a different angle just to keep it from flopping. So if you attach your pom-pom with like an X inside the hat, then it will stay on a lot nicer than if you were to just attach it with two straight lines. Because two straight lines going to allow it to flop this way and that way. If you do it in an X, it's going to prevent it from moving front and back and side to side. So, I stuck that in there and then I lost my needle because I stuck it in too far. Working with fur is such fun sometimes. So, there we have it. So then you will just bind that off and away you go. There is your slouchy hat, complete with truffle tree pom-pom. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please check out the website for more patterns and more freebies. And I hope to see you around soon. Talk to you later. Bye.